Hello everyone, welcome to week number 7 in Bio 120. We are in our next to the last week and it's a very important week. So let's see what we've got going on. So last week we learned about asexual and sexual reproduction and the advantages and disadvantages of each of those types of ways that cells and organisms reproduce. We learned some about heredity, which also goes along with this week in lab, if you're taking lab at the same time. We learned about the nature versus nurture question, like how much of us as organisms is determined by our genetics and how much is determined by environmental exposures of all different types. That's the nurture portion. And we learned about biodiversity and how important it is in everything from the types of genes that are present in a species, to members of the species, to populations, the members of a species in a population, and the different species that are in an ecosystem. There has to be biodiversity so that some organisms can survive no matter what the stressor is in that particular environment. Skim through chapters 44 and 46, all about ecology and ecosystems. And so this is the study of species together with their environment and how all of these factors interact. Look at the Module 7 overview, and I have an extra video here about red tides in Florida. This is the perfect time of year for red tides and algal blooms. It's hot weather. There's lots of extra fertilizer going into waterways. There's lots of extra animal waste. So, for example, here in North Carolina on the coast, there are lots of hog farms. And the waste from those hog farms ends up in our waterways and ends up eventually in the ocean. And we have red tides and algal blooms from time to time. The discussion board postings this week are optional. Optional. That means they are not graded. And it's the topic this week is eutrophication, and that's this red tide algal bloom situation that can happen. It's also a natural process for lakes and ponds because nutrients build up over time and organisms die and sink to the bottom of lakes and ponds. So eutrophication is a natural process, but it's also one that we help to speed up. And the phosphorus cycle, wastes, energy, and nutrient flow are all parts of these questions in the discussion board postings. Post if you'd like to. I'll be interacting with you if you do. All right, so this is the important thing this week. Your final project will be submitted this week. Very important. I cannot stress this enough. This is 260 points out of 1,000. That is more than 25% of your total grade is based on this one project. And that's because it's such a big project. Now, you have done everything for this. All you have to do is put it together and put it into a slide format. So first of all, the format is slides. This is not an essay. If you write it in essay format, you're going to get a lot of points taken off because that is not what is expected. You can use PowerPoint, Google Slides, Canva. I think PDF has a way to make slides. There's all kinds of ways to make slides. PowerPoint is the most usual one because everybody knows it. Speaker's notes at the bottom of the slides. Now you have to understand, even for me, this is a lot of words on a slide. But do you notice that I don't have anything written out in full sentences? Yeah, because your audience members don't want to read a whole bunch of sentences on your slides. They do not. Nobody wants to do that. So you're making this as if you were presenting to an audience. So it should look like that. So in order to remind yourself what you're supposed to be talking about, you put all your notes that you've written already in the speaker's notes section because your audience can't see those. Now, I'll be able to when you turn them in. So that's where you put all the information that you've explained out so that you don't forget any of it when you're making your presentation, right? So use speaker's notes. This includes all 3 of the milestones. And here are the assignments that you already have produced. Milestone 1, milestone 2, milestone 3, and they will already have been graded. So you have feedback. Look at the feedback. Fix the feedback that I've written there. Make your revisions so that you have the best final project that you can turn in. You can make 100% on this because you've already done all the work. So, take advantage of that. Include imagery, graphics, cartoons, photos, data, graphs, tables, statistics, drawings, whatever. What you're doing is making this interesting. So your audience will stay tuned in and pay attention to what you're saying. Make it impactful. If you're talking about deforestation, you ought to have a picture of the Amazon rainforest on one side, the natural forest, and on the other side, what happens when all that clear cutting takes place, because it is shocking. And that's exactly the impression that you want to give your audience. So have those types of imagery in your presentation because they're impactful. That's what you're trying to do. Label every section. The project template comes with all the labels. What are they? The headings for every single section of the milestones. That's all it is, the headings. Label. If you just write on and on these slides, and I don't know what in the world you're talking about, where every section is, and everything's all jumbled up. Nope, can't do it, because I got way too many slides to look at. Oh my goodness. It's at least 20 per student. Yeah, at least 25. Let's say 25, including references. Slides that I have to look at for 24 students. So, yeah, I can't be guessing at what you're putting on a slide. I need the labels, and they come with the template. So, that's what you need to do. And if you have any questions, all you have to do is ask me. Always. All you have to do is ask. Okay. And then, because that really is the only assignment that's due this week, you'll notice that there's no other journal assignment. The discussion board is optional. You need to focus on getting together that final project. Ask me if you have questions, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. And one other thing that you need to realize is that everything has to be turned into this course by Sunday, July 28th, before midnight. Everything. You can't turn it in late. There's no turning in anything late because the course closes and it will shut off and you cannot add. And you cannot send it to me to add because I cannot add. All I can do is grade for the next couple of days, and then I don't have access to it anymore either. So everything is due by Sunday, June 28th. That's the deadline for turning in absolutely everything. You need to be aware of that. That is coming up fairly soon. All right. With that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week number 7 and that you have fun putting together your final projects because this is kind of exciting. You've done all this work so far, and now this is the culmination of all that work, and you're putting together a presentation for an audience. Okay. I hope that you have a wonderful week 7.